This is exactly why you were expelled from school. You're incapable of sticking at anything you don't enjoy, and you always think you know a better way. Don't call me, do not call your siblings until you go back to university. And with that, my mum hung up the phone. But knowing me, my mum knew that I was going to do it regardless. I was going to drop out of university in Manchester after just the one lecture in the pursuit of my idea to build this student website called Wallpark. I thought it was crazy that in 2010 or 11, we still used physical notice boards, brick walls, to communicate with each other. And so my mission was to use an algorithm to bring student communication online. And in doing so, I went from a broke student who had maxed out 4 credit cards, whose parents weren't calling them, who had maxed his credit cards out so badly, in fact, that all the banks had refused me. I'd moved into an area in Manchester where people would be arrested in my garden. I was having to think of innovative ways to feed myself every day, but I was completely dead set on creating this idea. I was known for quitting as well. I was expelled from school for not going to school. I then dropped out of university after just the one lecture, but I've always had the courage of my convictions, and I believed that Wallpark could become something. So after 3 years of figuring out how you start a company, how you raise investment, how you build a team, Wallpark was finally live, this new digital notice board for students. And on that day, I was faced with the job that a lot of people in this room were faced with every single day. I became a marketeer, and that was something that I'd never done before as well. And so what I did is I emailed, tweeted, posted to all of my friends who said they were going to join the website the day it was ready, sent out hundreds of messages, and nobody came. 3 years of blood, sweat, and tears. I launched, nobody comes. And so I start reading books as to why that is. I changed my approach slightly, and I send out even more messages to people who said they would come to my website, and nobody came. And that's when I learned my first real lesson as a marketeer, which is never to fall into the dangerous trap of believing that anybody cares about you as much as you care about you. I genuinely believe, and I've come to learn, that it's much better and much more effective to create from the place and the belief that really nobody cares. And in my case, that was certainly true. I cared because I'd done the blood, sweat, and tears, and I knew how wonderful the website was, but Tom, Dick, and Harry have very busy lives. It's raining outside. They've got a flat tire. Their boyfriend or girlfriend is arguing with them. So when I pop up, saying, check out Wallpark, they have no reason to. I learned that my job as a marketeer was to reach this new generation where their attention is, and that's what I tried to do. So I read marketing books, and marketing books said, put flyers up, put posters up, take ads out in the newspaper. I tried that, nobody came. And after several months of wasting my money, I started to pay a little bit of attention to why people were ignoring me. When I was handing out my flyers, these students were walking past me like this. And they were in the palm of their hands. They were in this new digital world. And so I went to Pizza Hut. I got pizza vouchers. I gave students the vouchers in return for a screenshot of their phone, which tells me in the settings section where they're spending the time. The answer was social media. So I went on to Twitter. I found a page called Student Problems that had 5,000 followers. I tweeted the guy. I said, come and meet me. He traveled from his university to Manchester. I told him to drop out of university. I wanted to own his Twitter page, and we're going to spend all summer together building social media pages for students. And fortunately, and much to his parents' dismay, he did. He dropped out of university and moved to Manchester with me, and we built social media pages for students. And we spent all summer building these big pages. We built pages around all different types of interest topics. We had 4 million people following us on these pages. We were able to drive 1 million of them for free every single month to my website, Wallpark. And we were doing about 33,000 visits a day. And when it comes to working with brands, which we needed to do to make money, the general model is what you see there. You put the brand on the website, but I, again, didn't really believe that to be true because really all my traffic was coming from social media. I could just put brands on social media. This idea now is commonplace, but back in 2010, I would have been laughed out of the room had I proposed to put Spotify on a Facebook page for students. I would have literally been laughed out of the room, and I was. But I believed in that more. So after 3 years of building that company and raising investment from some of the biggest social media investors in the world, I quit out the blue. Had a big glass of wine and emailed them telling them that I believe social media is the platform, and that my website is really just taking people away from where they want to be and are, and I can build the community on social media, something my investors disagreed with. I then spent my 21st year on this earth going around the world, rounding up every young person I could, like Dom, who had started a big social media page. And it just so happened that the biggest channels in the world, whether it's travel, or it's food, or it's drinks, or puppies, or students, or whatever, most of them were started by young kids between the age of 16 and 21 in their bedrooms. The kid on the bottom left corner called Connor had 17 million people following him. He built the biggest travel page in the world on Instagram. He built the biggest fitness page in the world on Twitter. I hired all of these guys and acquired all of their assets. And together, we built more and more channels. And we were doing this in 2011. These channels are now the biggest channels in the world on social media around every topic, from cupcakes, millions of people follow our cupcake channels, Pomsky dogs, travel, gaming. We own all of the biggest gaming channels across social media. Sports channel, which was started by Nick in his bedroom at university, now has 17 million followers. It does more views and impressions than ESPN Sport. Student Problems, which Dom started when he had 5,000 followers. The kid that I met in Manchester told him to drop out of university, now has 10 million followers. It does 1.5 billion video views, reaches 1.5 billion people a month across social media, and it has a team of 16 people that run that channel. Love Travel, BeFit Motivation, started by Connor, is now the biggest fitness brand on social media. Love Food has 12 million followers, started by a girl called Beth. Social Gaming, started by a guy called Jeff in his bedroom, young kid. The biggest YouTube football channels and sports channels. And with this knowledge and the audience that this knowledge had built, we started two businesses. One's a media company called Media Chain that owns the media, and the second is Social Chain, which is the marketing agency. And the media company has become the 7th most viewed media company in the world, ahead of Time Warner and the Walt Disney Company. It's, as you can see, in that month it grew by 246%. It does 2.5 billion video views on social media per month. And I wanted to talk about communication today, and I wanted to give some tips as to how you can better communicate using the things that are at the very forefront of what's possible in social media and digital stuff. I'm also very keen to get to questions because I want to see if there's any problems I can help you guys solve, so I'll be as fast as I can. We live in this fake news era where everyone's super concerned about the credibility of information, driven by scandals like the Cambridge Analytica scandal that most of you would have heard about, and Donald Trump's big fake news crusade. Mark Zuckerberg has been one of the big sort of scapegoats, in my opinion, because of the public's turn in concern about the credibility of news. And the thing about fake news I find quite interesting is the basic premise of how great marketing happens is also really the same as how fake news happens. It's kind of like centered around these 4 key pillars. The first is understanding humans. I've never read a marketing book in my life. Marketing in our space changes every single day. And when I say every single day, I mean every day. There's a group on my phone where 20 different changes in social media will be posted a day. So I don't think about marketing books. I want to focus on things that don't change, which is humans. Emotionally leveraging culture, which is kind of 2 points. Understanding the channel, which is constantly changing. And then having some kind of method to distribute this content or this fake news. I wanted to give an example of how we created a bit of fake news for fun to show you exactly what I mean. So I was speaking at the world's largest football conference. It's called SoccerX. And so what I did is I created a fake football player called Rex Secco, which, as you can see, is an anagram of the name of the conference. Here he is off Google Images, just a random photo I found. He kind of looks a bit like a Rex, I guess. I made some graphics to make it feel real. So this is now going into the points about leveraging human psychology and emotionally tapping into culture. I made him super young, which again is a bit contentious. I made, as you can see from the stats, he doesn't know how to score goals, but I also made him sign for Arsenal Football Club because all of the social data told me that that club was most angry at their manager for not signing a player. So I gave them a bad player. Because again, that's emotion and culture coming together to give this message a little bit more of the gasoline it needed. Pressed our magic social chain button, distributed it across our channel, start talking about it, and the world start talking about Rex Secco signing for Arsenal. Within the first 2 minutes, the general narrative was, who is this player? Within 10 minutes, people believed it. So this Rex Echo looks worth the money. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of tweets coming in at this stage. Arsenal have signed the next big thing in British football. He looks better than Benzema. In the United Kingdom, it started to trend at number 9 within 15 minutes of us pressing the button. Within 20 minutes, more tweets flood in from all around the world. We have about 33,000 tweets at this point. This guy in the bottom left corner says, Rex Echo at age 16 is worth 34 million, and I'm not even worth a text back. Slightly sad. More tweets flood in. This guy here says, man, no one has a clue about that Rex Echo, but that wasn't necessarily true, because this guy could have sworn he'd seen him play before. Moves up the trend, start trending at number 5 on Twitter. Within 35 minutes, people start discussing the signing of Rex Echo over on Reddit. The media weigh in on the story, of course, because they need their clicks. The Metro wrote 3 articles about the signing of Rex Echo. The Daily Mirror called it one of football's greatest ever hoaxes after we had announced that it wasn't actually true. There's 300,000 search results for Rex Echo on Google alone. 151 million impressions just that night on Twitter. Global impact all around the world, as you can see from this heat map. And the shirt of £34 million Rex Echo hangs proudly on the wall in our office. So how do we influence people in 2018 and going into the future? I just wanted to focus on the things that most people don't really think about today. And it goes back to these kind of core pillars. When I speak about human psychology, influencing people online is pretty much just the same as influencing people in the real world. People act in the same way that the crowd acts. They follow the crowd as it's a survival technique. There's a great study which shows people in lifts will, if there's 5 stooges within a lift and you walk in and those 5 stooges face the back of the lift, even though the door is clearly there, a huge percentage of the time, participants will just turn and face the back of the lift because that's what everybody's doing. And the same applies for hotel bathrooms. They used to think the most compelling message to get you to reuse your towel in the hotel was to tell you about the environment. And then they did this study across 5,000 hotels and discovered that the most compelling message to get you to reuse your towel is just putting a card in your room that says, 86% of our hotel guests reuse their towels. Please, can you as well? Same happens with social media. When I talk about emotionally tapping into culture, there's no better example than this man, Donald Trump. Here you have someone who came into the world with a super inflammatory message at a time where culture really cared about certain issues, very sort of xenophobic issues. And his message delivered 22.5 times the reach versus Hillary Clinton's more vanilla message that wasn't leveraging these cultural points in the lead up to the election. So we quite publicly, based on that data and based on various other things, announced publicly that Donald Trump was going to win the election. And we went on record with our biggest client, Coca-Cola, telling them that Donald Trump was going to win the election, and lo and behold, he won the election because he was leveraging something that culture cared about with a very emotive narrative. And emotion is fundamentally, making people feel is fundamentally the reason things travel online and social media. Then there's various ways to distribute your message. Most of you will know most of these methods. Your own channels, you can pay, you can get influencers. And back in 2015 and 16, everyone was concerned about these big name influencers. But the world has changed. And now there's a different type of influencer. And that is you. Now brands are more concerned with working with micro-influencers and people like yourself for various reasons. There is a loss of authenticity when it comes to working with the biggest influencers in the world, with the Kim Kardashians. There's an ability to hit laser-focused niches and groups of people when you work with micro-influencers. And now, in the last, I'd say 3 years of running this business, year 1, 90%, 95% of our influencer work was with huge name influencers. Now 95% of it is brands trying to figure out how they make the average person an influencer for their brand. Something really interesting for the hotel industry. And it was something really interesting for Apple when they approached us. We ran a survey to figure out what it was that makes young people decide to purchase something. And the numbers were quite obvious, friends. And that's what micro-influencers are. They're your friends. You are the most influential force in your friend's life. Apple asked us, when they launched Apple Music, to try and get a huge amount of students to refer other students to download Apple Music. You've probably heard about student brand ambassador campaigns where students run around campus with t-shirts on. Our job was to figure out how we make Apple's existing customers become influencers for the brand. And there's a similar thing within the hotel industry. How do you make your existing guests become influencers for the brand? And here's one thing we did for Apple. So I'm going to kind of run you through how this works. We created an advert, and we targeted it at students on social media. It said, do you want to be an Apple ambassador? Students click the advert, and they go through to a landing page. On that landing page, we ask them 3 questions. Who's your favorite musical artist? They'll say, Adele. Where do you listen to your favorite musical artist? They'll say, in the gym. How does this musical artist make you feel? They might say, inspired. And then there's a button that says, do you want to become an Apple ambassador and get free Apple Music for the next 3 months? If you do, we get to do 1 post on your social channels on your behalf automatically at a time of our choosing. 97% of students clicked yes. And in doing so, they got 3 months free of Apple Music, and in return, we get 1 post it's automatic via the API on their channel. And we have that custom information that they've just filled in to make sure that that post is completely relevant and specific to them. So we have thousands and thousands of students sign up within 72 hours, and then we segment them by region and country and whittle some out that don't make sense. And then all at once, you have 1,700 students all posting that they love Apple Music. They listen to it in the gym while they're listening to Drake, Adele, Kanye, because it makes them feel X, Y, and Z. And it's the single most signups Apple Music had since Apple Music launched. And that was just leveraging their existing customers, but also leveraging these small micro-influencers. And all the studies say the same thing. It's delivering more. It's delivering much more than working with big-name influencers. When we did a micro-influencer campaign with some of these fashion brands last month, we delivered 6 times the sales than when working with big influencers. This is working with people that have between 5,000 and 50,000 followers. But there's also a different type of influence, and a different way to leverage these influencers, and it's personalization. For me, it's absolutely fascinating how much free marketing Starbucks have had just by writing your name on the cup. It's absolutely astounding. They've probably saved themselves hundreds of millions in free marketing because they write your name on the cup. Because everybody my age will take a photo of that cup and upload it to social media, especially when they get your name wrong. And to think that it was so simple, and you think about why that is, and our sense of identity and all these kinds of things, and it makes a lot of sense. And Coke's, working closely with Coke, their most successful campaign in recent years was just by writing names on the side of Coke cans. Nothing was more successful than that. Nothing generated more free media online than writing your name on it. And we did a gifting campaign to try and understand and leverage the same thing. Big brands, what they often do is send out packages of clothes to influencers. We did a campaign with French Montana. This isn't the actual box, but I just made a little mock-up to show you. It was actually much nicer. And we did the first campaign just as a plain box, sent to influencers. We then had someone just write on the box, to John, hope you enjoy the clothes, French. And it delivered 7 times the return than when we didn't write their name on the box. And I think about this from a hotel perspective and how in hotels you can leverage this at various stages in the customer journey, just adding some kind of hint of personalization or seeing the experience of someone booking a hotel room through the lens of social media, giving them an opportunity to Snapchat or Instagram or upload something that will play to their ego. Very, very simple. Could turn all of your customers into advocates just by playing to their ego in some way. I remember I landed in a hotel in India, and when I got to my room, there was a cupcake on the bed with my company's logo on it. Had that hotel asked me to post across my channels, it would have cost quite a lot of money. I uploaded those things immediately for free. How cool is that? They put a cupcake with my company logo on. And I gave them what I would charge, maybe £5,000 for a post for free. That's the power of playing to the ego, I guess. But there's a different type of influencer as well. There are thousands of these small communities that have been started by young kids in their bedroom. You don't just, when you think of influencers, you don't just need to think of people. There are communities across social media. And here are some communities for travel. So I just typed in travel on Instagram, and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these pages, some with millions of followers, run by 16-year-olds in their bedrooms. And our belief that this is equally important is what's made Media Chain, our media business, the 7th highest media company in the world, just by rounding up these people. These can be your advocates as a brand. There's a different way to influence again, which is the live revolution. Live video is a new invention to social media in general, and it's come about because internet in our pockets has got really, really good. So we can now watch live video really at a high quality in the palm of our hands. The thing with live video at the moment is it's still in its early stages, and often marketeers and brands think of live video as an extension of TV. But it's fundamentally different. With Facebook in particular, who really are the home of live video at the moment, nobody ever comes to Facebook to watch your live video. They stumble across it. It's not like TV where they sit down at 7 p.m. with the intent of watching your video. They're discovering it accidentally, and that means you have to create a live video format that doesn't rely on them being there at the start to understand the context of what they're watching. Social Chain are responsible for 9 of the top 10 branded live videos in the world ever. Last week we won the award for the best live video in 2017, and this success has been driven by 2 very simple principles. The first is the content needs to be captivating enough and contextually make sense, irrespective of the fact that they might land at minute 30 or minute 3. I'll give you an example. Here's what we did for Boohoo. Before I show you this example, the thing to note is that live video on social media doesn't actually have to be live. You can upload pre-recorded videos, and they appear as live videos. And in this case, what we did is we created a quiz. Very simple. The quiz lasts for 1 hour. There are 60 questions. There's a 60-second timer in the middle of the screen. There's a question across the bottom of the screen. The question here is, which film was recently incorrectly announced as winning Best Picture at the Oscars? The answer is La La Land. If you comment La La Land before it hits 0, you win that prize in the top right corner there, and your face is automatically pulled from the comment section into the stream when it hits 0, all automatic. Software does it all itself. And we're not running these quizzes because we care about giving dresses away or quizzes. These are built to be inherently viral, and this is why. Once you have their attention, point 2 is that you're going to need to rely on that retained audience's engagement in order for the stream to spread. Every time someone comments, the way that algorithms work is it tells all of their friends, Tom just commented on this stream. And then what happens is, Jenny, who is Tom's friend, sees this. Contextually, it's really easy to understand. You see Tom has just commented on this. You look at it, you know the answer to that question, you comment too, and the viral loop continues. And these quizzes in 60 minutes have gotten 356,000 comments, 2.7 million comments. From pages with 20,000 fans, we've delivered tens of millions of views. And we've just figured out how to do the same thing on Instagram, where we can use your real engagement to change the stream. Another different way to influence, which I think is super interesting and super relevant to this industry in particular, is social bots. There are 2 real things that I find interesting. So the first is, on Facebook now, you can now broadcast a message privately to your followers. And the open rate on Facebook Messenger is about 90%. And if you think about your email campaigns and how that compares, Facebook Messenger is the new email. So a great example with Man United as well, with how you can use broadcasts. They launched their YouTube channel. Anybody that comments on this post saying, I love the channel, they can then add them to a list called YouTube Appreciation and message all of those people saying, hey, thanks for the message, here's the link to subscribe. Even more interesting with social bots is they're becoming the easiest way to mitigate customer service BS. And here's a great example with an airline, KLM. They allow you to check where your flight is just by messaging this AI bot, basically. You can book your flights via the bot. You can message it or message back. And the great thing with these bots is they're learning, so they're getting smarter and smarter. This is making your customer service teams redundant. Another example of a company that sell fashion. You can now buy close just by messaging this bot saying, hey, I want some sunglasses. It will say, how much do you want to spend? It will say this much, and it will literally deliver them to your house without going to a website or speaking to a human being. And the same will apply for booking your hotel rooms. Lego, another great example, selling Lego via Messenger bot. Katy Perry sells concert tickets via Messenger bot. Mana Devore, a brand owned by a friend of mine, if you go to their website and you don't check out or you don't book, 24 hours later, you will receive a message from the Messenger bot on Facebook saying, hey, you didn't check out, here's what you were going to book or buy, do you want to change your mind? You can even message them, say, hey, listen, the price has just dropped 15%, do you want to check out now? If they've just looked at your website. Super smart things that you should be doing with Messenger bot, because the open rates at the moment are just astounding. And then there's other types of Messenger. So outside of the Facebook ecosystem, well, it's within the Facebook ecosystem, but outside of Facebook, we have WhatsApp and SMS. And SMS marketing has been here for a long time and has been a very interesting thing. But WhatsApp in particular is still a very private place. And that means that you have to play in a certain way, you have to respect that privacy, but the open rates on a WhatsApp message, again, are over 95%. There are now some great things that we're doing with some of our big brands where we're adding people to WhatsApp broadcast lists, which is a new possibility. And one example is every single day, if you've joined Social Chain's broadcast list, in the morning, you'll be sent a list of all the things that changed in social media. And you can do the same thing with your customers. On Facebook Messenger, you can track their location as well. So if they come into the vicinity of your hotel, you can send them a message saying, hey, whilst you're in Lisbon, come check out our hotel, we'll give you 20% off for returning. Some really smart things to be doing with Messenger bots. Engagement data. This is another really interesting thing that I've done for myself personally, and I want to show you the example for myself. About a year ago, I set about trying to understand how you build a brand, a personal brand, using social media, and here's what I did. I used Facebook's targeting features to get myself from 0 to 1 million followers personally in less than 12 months. What I did is I made these very broad appeal videos. This one here is called the single biggest killer of relationships. The answer is social media, and I explain that in the video. But 36 million people watched this video because it's inherently viral, it's compelling, it's got those meme bars above and below it which pull people in. And if you watched this video, next time you log into Facebook, you see this, which is my TED Talk, which is a 12-minute video about me and my life. And what I'm doing is I'm bringing you from being a total stranger that doesn't care about me or that I exist to bringing you slowly closer and closer. If you watch the first video, you see this. If you watch 50% of this video, next time you log into Facebook, you'll see this, which is the video I shoot every single day, no matter where I am. It's my daily vlog. And if you watch 5 of these, you're at the bottom of the funnel, and you know exactly who I am, you know that I care about the brand, and I can get you to convert, to come to a different channel, to come and watch me talk or whatever. And the same applies for the hotel industry. Creating super interesting travel content at the top of the funnel that is just applicable to everybody. People that engage with that should then be retargeted with content that brings you closer to the brand, and then finally, if they do show an affinity to the brand, converting them in any direction. My next point, this is a whistle-stop tour, is about the shift we've seen in marketing teams in general, which is the shift from thinking that you're a marketeer to really acting more like a publisher. The way that all the social channels are set up at the moment means that you can pay for someone organic reach has plummeted. So you now really have the choice of just paying people to see your marketing message about yourself, but you can't pay people to watch. You can only pay to put it in their timeline. It's like TV in that regard. You can pay to have it interrupt their experience, like I was back in the day with my flyers, but you can't make them care. And so all the big brands we work with are now acting like media companies. Red Bull is a great example. They don't do marketing to sell their cans of drinks. They create amazing content like throwing Max out of the spacecraft. And that's the brands that are winning online at the moment have set their internal teams up to be publishers. They have video teams, not marketeers. Interesting shifts in social media in the last 30 days. Instagram's big move at the moment is to own the transaction and to become the e-commerce platform. And at the start of last month, they announced that they had been basically secretly working on an internal booking system which will allow people to book, buy within Instagram. And here's a leaked screenshot of exactly how that looks for a hairdressing salon. Your credit card will be loaded into Instagram, and you can expect the same with Facebook. And if you see a nice picture of a hotel room, you click on it, it takes you through to the second screen. It says, what kind of room do you want to book? You can book and check in and everything directly on Instagram. Instagram and all the social platforms will want to own their traffic. They don't want to send it to another website who then gets to make the transaction. And so it's more important now than ever to be thinking about your social strategy and how you're building your audiences on Instagram. And if not, have a really killer person within your team that understands paid ads on Instagram. Twitter's still the home of reactivity. That's still where it wins. Facebook have two sort of real significant changes in the last couple of months. The first is Mark Zuckerberg said he's now going to prioritize brands that drive meaningful reach. So if you can get people to have meaningful conversations, he admits that Facebook is not good for you. So in his big statement, he says, we're going to encourage content that causes meaningful interaction. That gets you to talk to your friends, basically. And the thing on the right is Facebook's big move to basically take down YouTube. They've launched Facebook Watch, which is essentially YouTube built into Facebook. And for the first time ever, you won't just stumble across videos, you can search for videos. They've got beta publishers and channels on there at the moment, including our own channels, and it's exactly like YouTube. They're coming for that pie. So that's something to bear in mind as well. YouTube is still a platform that cares more about bringing people back every day. So if you're going to play on YouTube as a brand, you need to make videos every day. They've told me on numerous occasions that they rank publishers the highest who produce at least once a day because you're bringing people back, they're selling more ads. The other thing on YouTube, which I thought was interesting, is you get credit for the streak somebody goes on while they're on YouTube. So if someone lands on your YouTube video and they spend an hour on YouTube, the first video that they touched gets the credit, and that's ranked highest, because that's seen as a video that keeps people on the platform. It might be because it's a series, but that's just something to bear in mind to create sort of more episodic things. Where I see the opportunity the most, I think outside of the things you'd expect, is podcasting, just absolutely exploding. Travel podcasts, if you can create a podcast that makes sense to your customers, there's huge upsides there. It's an industry that is absolutely exploding for a variety of reasons, and it's slaughtering radio. LinkedIn, it's basically like robbing a bank at the moment when it comes to reach. They've not figured out their algorithms yet, so it's like Facebook in 2010, where I could get a Facebook page to reach 1 million people in a day, 1 million likes in a day. That's what LinkedIn is at the moment. And then these other channels are for much younger audiences, like Musical.ly. Twitch is exploding as live gaming, and Facebook groups are the best way at the moment to build a community online. We have 5 offices around the world now. Social Chain is 3.5 years old. It's a marketing business, which is what I've told you about today, which is 3% of our revenue. The media company and the e-commerce side of what we do equates to about 300 million euros a year. So we really, first and foremost, we transition from marketing other people's products to selling our own. Some things the press have said about us, we get called the Illuminati a lot because we rounded up a lot of influential people. Coke said we're the agency they admire the most. We work with the biggest brands in the world. And most importantly, me and my mum have never had a better relationship. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks.
So thank you, Stephen. This was absolutely fascinating, and hopefully it was fascinating for everybody else here who had a late night but made it up in the morning to kind of go through this. So we have a few questions up, but I kind of had a couple of my own that I was going through it. So one thing that actually kind of struck me was when you were talking about the free advertising, essentially like Starbucks, right? So you put your name on there, and it kind of struck me as like people's incorrect names. So, I mean, can you look at it as bad marketing? So, from that perspective, like, if you do something incorrectly, that's actually a good way of getting some good marketing out, or from the social media side?
100%. Okay. At the end of the day, the most sort of the most fundamental thing you're trying to do is make people feel something, right? Indifference as a marketeer is the worst possible case scenario. That's when you put something out in the world that makes nobody feel anything, and therefore nobody react or touch it or engage. And so what we've seen over the last year is this real trend in intentional mistakes from brands and marketing. And we of course, we don't know if those mistakes were intentional, but if you look at the increase in intentional mistakes where a brand accidentally did something and how much attention they then gathered from doing that thing, it seems like a bit of a coincidence. And that's exactly what, with the misspelling of the names that we're seeing. It just makes people laugh. It cuts through because it's not the norm, and therefore it generates a huge amount of attention. And I see this a lot on Twitter, where you'll have things like an influencer will accidentally include the message that they were sent from the brand. So the post will say, "Hi, David Beckham, please post this." And then it will have the thing David Beckham was meant to post, and the whole thing is posted. And that tweet will be much more viral than if they hadn't included, "Hi, David Beckham, please can you post this?" And we've seen that, it just seems to be happening all the time now, because those tweets are viral. And I guess at the end of the day, the brand is trying to be heard. And are they being heard? Yes. They might be being laughed at the process, but I come away knowing that, Betfair are doing a £9 deal on betting this week, So, yeah.
Excellent, great. So I know we have a little bit amount of time, so I'll just go through the questions that are out there. So
Sure.
Have you seen any effective hotel social media campaigns? If so, what was the campaign and why did it work?
Ooh. So, from the things that I see that are most interesting are hotels making, I kind of touched on it with the personalization thing, making so we work with some hotel brands, but we work with the hostel worlds, and we've done some cool things there to flip perceptions with people thinking hostels are grotty places that students go to lay on bunk beds. So we've done things like, put Mariah Carey in the bunk bed because she's like the ultimate, diva. And so you'll get to the hotel and Mariah Carey will be sleeping in the bed next to you, and just filming that on covert cameras, which are inherently viral, things like that. But anything which I saw one campaign where someone arrived at a hotel, and this hotel had done, the message they were trying to portray is that they care about their customers. So they'd done this months and months and months and months of research on this one lady that had gone through a bad time. And when she got to the hotel, it's just like nothing you've ever seen before. And it was like they rolled out the red carpet, they had singers, she walks in, there's a famous singer singing to her. All these they'd gone like 10x the personalization experience, and it went viral on social media. And you walk away thinking, do you know what, that hotel really cares about people? But I can't remember much else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe there's an opportunity there.
Let me ask the reverse of that. So have you seen any campaigns, and we don't have to call any hoteliers out, but that they've gone towards social media in the exact wrong way?
Like most companies.
Okay. So pretty much most of us, good.
Yeah, just because there still tends to be this attitude that social media is this megaphone that because you have followers, you're entitled to shout at. And it's this is why I said at the start, to try and create your ideas and try and speak outside of the bubble and the belief that people care about you. And if you believe that everybody cares and that they just want to know how cheap your hotels are, you'll just tell them how cheap the hotels are. If you believe that they're busy, they don't care, it becomes a different fight to win their attention in other, more emotive, interesting, creative ways. Yeah. Oh.
Great,
I'd love to run a hotel, because the hotel I would run would just be, the whole process would be reimagined through the lens of social media. And it would be like the whole thing would be an experience. The way you check, everyone checks in the same at every hotel. Yeah. You go up to the counter, you da-da-da-da-da. Why can't you check in with a hologram? Do you know, that's marketing in itself. Why can't I go up to a hologram and have a chat? Or why can't I, there could just be a little bit more innovation in the consumer process, which I think will really cut through. Yeah.
Interesting, yeah. I think it's a good way, and kind of leads to the next question, like how do you have, how do you get hotel brands to inspire existing customers to be the ambassadors? So, based on what you've kind of seen, it's going to get people in there.
I mean, there's just so many ways. The way you can do it without ever speaking to them or contacting them is through a lot of the things we've talked about by making an awesome experience that is unlike, like in the hotel industry, I go to a lot of hotels because I travel a lot. It's just all the same. The experience is just the same. It's like you've all used the same, I'm not like trying to call anyone out, like you've all read the same book or something about how, and the reason why social chain has gone from really as like 2 people to 1,000 members of staff and has captivated the industry we operate in is because we were like idiots. And we were naive, and that naivety led us to make decisions that you shouldn't have made, right? Because you're not meant to do things like that. So, prime example, walking into the office as a 22-year-old and deciding that I wanted a slide. The first thing I bought was a £13,000 slide with investment money. Terrible decision. But because I was so naive, that story of there being this long, weird slide in our headquarters and became a place that all of the world's press flocked to. And if you look at any of the press, from Forbes to Bloomberg to BuzzFeed, all of them make me lie in this bloody slide. And it's generated more revenue because we were naive and did something differently because we didn't read how you're meant to run a business than anything else. That's the story of Social Chain. It's like unlimited holidays. You don't have to come to work if you don't want to come to work. No one's counting the hours. You bring whatever animals you have to work. Totally flexible. You're totally autonomous. You go in there. You walk. The first thing you do when you walk into Social, you walk into this massive jungle. It smells, feels, sounds like a jungle, and it's long, and there's just loads of caves. And we've just created from this really naive place. Our work, as you can see, is really naive, and that's just cut through and exploded our company. So I think a little bit more naivety and a little less reading what convention says you're meant to do. And Elon Musk attributes that way of thinking to the success of all of his companies. He calls it first principle thinking, which is where it requires more energy because it's easier just to read what everyone's done before. But you start from really, these first principles. And my first principles when I created Social Chain were, I guess, if people love work, they'll work harder. So my job became, let's create a place people really loved. If work doesn't get in the way, I guess, is one of my first principles, or like work shouldn't get in the way of life. This is why you choose when you work, right? Totally flexible. And these first principles have how we created the company, not from conventions, metaphors, or ideas. And I think the same, I'd love to create a new hotel and the whole new experience of how you book those hotels, just imagined from the things we know to be true about people today. And that's really the thing. The great thing about first principle thinking is it creates solutions built for today. The 16 to 21-year-olds that I employ have Instagram today. They have this world which creates an impression that life is just this holiday and cupcakes at work because that's the only thing people post. They post the one day when they got cupcakes at work, not the 99% of the day. So that's what I'm competing with, a false reality. So, and they also want to be free. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Every young person wants to be a blogger. And because I created from the things that I believe to be true today, we've created an environment where Social Chain will get hundreds and hundreds of applications for jobs a week. I was saying to you earlier, we had an owl flown in the office. We've had people literally knocking on the door, people flying from other countries just to try and get an interview. It's seen as the mecca of work. And the crazy thing is, when I talk about the holiday policy, nobody uses the normal 28 days you'd get. Nobody. Honestly, our issue at the moment is making sure people go home. And people say young people are lazy, not when they love doing what they're doing, And we genuinely have to have policies where we get people to go home at night, because they'll just sit there hanging around, hanging in the bar in the pub and thinking about stuff, So, yeah.
So one thing, and I know we're running low on time. This is something we covered yesterday, especially just from personalization and kind of profiling and whatnot. So how does GDPR affect the effectiveness of direct marketing campaigns? So I'll leave you with an easy one.
Yeah, so the GDPR thing just means that a lot of our business has to adjust, and it's a bit crazy, to be honest.
Well, what about personalization, though? So is that something, obviously, if you're doing a social media campaign, right? I mean, you're kind of targeting multiple people. Is there any way you can target individuals based on their interests, or are you kind of doing that as which individual influencers they look at, that's kind of how you target them?
Yeah, so with the campaign I described for Apple, where we got thousands of people to basically give us their social media channel to do a post. Yeah. All of those things are technically GDPR compliant. unless there's someone in the room that's an expert, and then I'm sorry if I'm wrong. But because we get people to opt in, and they agree. Other than that, a lot of the work we do on Facebook and on these channels is via Facebook's ad tools, and they are the ones that have the responsibility to make sure that those tools are compliant.
Yeah.
Any data we collect, including the things I referenced with Messenger, WhatsApp, has had to be kind of reimagined. So we have to introduce all of these long, extensive opt-in processes. Yeah, it just requires a little bit more work. Yeah, but everything I've said today is GDPR compliant, yeah.